The training hall smelled like burnt ozone and crushed pride. Kira Voss stood in the center of the combat circle, her hands empty, her feet planted on scorched metal flooring. Around her, the other cadets of Battle Academy 7 whispered and snickered, their voices echoing off the curved walls like insects buzzing near a dying light. "Look at her," someone muttered. "Still here, still trying. Does she even have a power rating?" Another voice asked. "My scanner says 0. Literally 0. Kira didn't turn around. She'd learned months ago that acknowledging them only made it worse. Instead, she focused on the instructor standing across from her, a towering Vraxian with 4 arms and skin the color of deep space. Instructor Talrek was one of the few who hadn't written her off completely. Yet. "Begin when ready, Cadet Voss," Talrek rumbled, his lower arms crossed, while his upper hands gestured toward the training drones hovering near the ceiling. 3 drones descended, their surfaces gleaming silver, equipped with stun blasters set to the lowest setting. Even on low, they hurt, like being punched by a mechanical fist. Kira had experienced that particular joy 17 times this semester. She took a breath, held it, released. The first drone attacked. Most cadets would have raised an energy shield, or teleported, or turned their skin to living stone. Marcus Hale, the Academy's golden boy, could generate plasma hot enough to melt titanium. Yuki Tanaka could split herself into 7 copies. Even Dex Oren, who everyone called the weakest telekinetic in history, could at least move a training dummy with his mind. Kira could do none of these things. What she could do was dodge. The stun bolt sizzled past her left ear as she dropped low, spinning on her heel. The second drone fired, and she rolled forward, feeling the heat wash over her back. The third drone anticipated her movement and fired where she would be, but Kira had already changed direction mid-roll, coming, up in a crouch. "Pathetic," someone called from the observation deck. The drones circled, recalibrating. They were learning her patterns, getting faster. This was the part where most cadets would switch to offense, blast the drones out of the air with whatever cosmic gift they'd been born with. Kira grabbed a training baton from the equipment rack beside her. The drones attacked in unison. What happened next took 4.3 seconds. Though to Kira, it felt like minutes. She'd practiced this specific scenario in her head so many times that her body moved on pure instinct. Duck under the first bolt. Use the baton to knock the second drone's trajectory off course, sending its shot wild. Pivot and throw the baton at the third drone, not to damage it, but to force it to dodge, buying her 2 seconds. Grab the first drone as it swooped low. Use its momentum to slam it into the second drone. Both machines crashed to the floor in a shower of sparks. The third drone hovered above her, targeting reticule glowing red on her chest. Kira jumped, caught the edge of the observation deck railing, pulled herself up and over in one smooth motion, and dropped behind Marcus Hale, who had been watching with his arms crossed. The drone, locked on target, fired. Marcus's reflexes kicked in automatically. A wall of superheated plasma erupted from his hands, vaporizing the stun bolt and melting the drone into a puddle of slag. "What the hell, Voss?" Marcus spun on her, his hands still glowing with barely contained energy. "You could have gotten me shot." "The training protocols have safety overrides," Kira said calmly, dusting off her uniform. "The drone would have powered down before actually hitting a bystander. You didn't need to destroy Academy property. You manipulated me into doing your work." Marcus's face was turning an impressive shade of purple. "I used the resources available to me," Kira corrected. "Isn't that what tactical training is about?" Down in the combat circle, Instructor Talrek's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement or disgust. With Vraxians, it was hard to tell. "Clever," Talrek rumbled, "but ultimately, pointless. In real combat, Cadet Voss, you would have died 3 times over. You cannot rely on others to compensate for your deficiency forever." The word hung in the air like a curse. deficiency. That's what they called it in the official reports. Power deficiency. Ability null. Genetically inactive. 23 different ways to say the same thing. Kira Voss was powerless in a universe where everyone else could bend reality to their will. Maybe she should transfer to supply logistics, Yuki suggested from her position by the wall, her 7 copies speaking in perfect unison, which was deeply unsettling no matter how many times Kira saw it. Lots of null humans work in supply. Nothing wrong with that. There's everything wrong with that. Kira surprised herself with the vehemence in her voice. I didn't apply to Battle Academy 7 to sort cargo crates. I applied because humanity needs fighters who can actually think, not just throw powers around until something breaks. Thinking doesn't stop a plasma bolt, Marcus said coldly. Power does. You don't have power, which means you don't belong here. Then test me properly, Kira shot back. Give me a real scenario. Not training drones that move in predictable patterns, but something that requires actual strategy. The room went quiet. Instructor Talrek's 4 eyes narrowed. You want a real test? I want to prove I belong here. Cadet Voss? Talrek's voice carried a warning. The advanced scenarios are designed for students with fully manifested abilities. They are dangerous, even with powers. Without them, you risk serious injury. Then I'll sign a waiver. This is insane, Marcus muttered. She's going to get herself killed just to make a point. Kira met Talrek's gaze and didn't blink. I've been getting knocked down and getting back up for 8 months. If I'm going to wash out, I'd rather it be because I failed at something difficult than because everyone assumed I couldn't succeed at something I never got to try. For a long moment, Talrek said nothing. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached for his datapad and began typing. Very well. 3 days from now, you will face the Arena Crucible. It's a combat scenario we use for final year students. You will face simulated enemy combatants, environmental hazards, and strategic challenges designed to test every aspect of a fighter's abilities. The scenario adapts to the participant's power level and adjusts accordingly. And when it detects I have no powers? Kira asked. Talrek's mandibles clicked again. Then, it will conclude you are using stealth abilities and increase the difficulty to maximum. You will have 30 minutes to achieve the primary objective. Capture the command beacon in the center of the arena. 30 minutes, Kira repeated. Most powered cadets require 45 minutes and multiple attempts. Several have been injured badly enough to require medical regeneration. Are you certain about this? Kira's heart was hammering, but she kept her voice steady. I'm certain. Then I will schedule your evaluation. And Cadet Voss? Talrek leaned forward. I genuinely hope you survive long enough to realize how foolish this decision is. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation and doubt. Kira stopped attending regular classes and spent every waking hour in the Academy's research library, studying past Arena Crucible recordings. She watched dozens of attempts, analyzing how different powers interacted with the simulation's adaptive AI. Teleporters who got trapped by spatial locks, energy projectors who faced reflective barriers, shapeshifters who encountered sensors that detected their true forms. The arena wasn't just difficult. It was specifically designed to counter whatever advantages the participant brought to the dissonant fight, which meant it would assume Kira had advantages she definitely didn't have. You look terrible, said a voice behind her. Kira spun to find Lena Park, one of the few cadets who'd never actively mocked her. Lena was a technopath, able to interface with machines through thought alone. She was also, to Kira's knowledge, the only other person in the academy who studied scenarios instead of just relying on raw power to solve problems. Thanks, Kira said. I was going for determined professional, but terrible works too. Lena sat down beside her, glancing at the holographic playback frozen on the screen. You're really going through with this? Don't have much choice now? It's either prove myself or prove everyone right. Those aren't the only two options. Lena's voice was gentle. You could withdraw. Say you reconsidered. Come back when you're ready. I'll never be ready, not by their standards. Kira rubbed her eyes. I don't have powers, Lena. That's not going to change. Either I figure out how to succeed anyway, or I spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out her own datapad and transferred a file to Kira's device. What's this? Schematics for the arena's mechanical systems? Ventilation, power grid, structural supports. The simulation runs on holographic hard light technology, but the arena itself is a physical structure. If you understand the space, you might find advantages the system doesn't account for. Kira stared at the data flowing across her screen. This is restricted information. Consider it a loan between students. Lena stood. And Kira? For what it's worth, I don't think you're powerless. I think everyone else is so focused on what you can't do that they miss what you can. What's that? Lena smiled. You don't give up. In a universe full of people who've never had to struggle, that might be the most powerful ability of all. The day of the evaluation arrived with all the warmth of a funeral. The entire academy had turned out to watch. Apparently, word had spread that the powerless human was finally going to be put in her place, and nobody wanted to miss the spectacle. The observation decks surrounding the Arena Crucible were packed with cadets, instructors, and even some off-duty military personnel who'd heard about the event. Kira stood at the entrance to the arena, wearing standard combat gear. No weapons beyond what she could scavenge inside. No backup. No safety net beyond the medical team on standby. Instructor Talrek approached, his expression unreadable. Last chance to reconsider, Cadet Voss. I'm good. The scenario will begin 30 seconds after you enter. You will have 30 minutes to reach the command beacon. Any serious injury will result in automatic extraction and failure. Do you understand? I understand. Talrek stepped aside. The arena doors hissed open, revealing darkness beyond. Kira walked forward. Behind her, she heard Marcus's voice drifting down from the observation deck. This'll be over in 5 minutes. 10 if she's lucky. The doors sealed shut, with a sound like a tomb closing. Kira stood in absolute darkness for exactly 30 seconds. She used the time to control her breathing, center her thoughts, and review everything she'd learned. The arena was 200 meters across, with multiple levels and environmental zones. The command beacon would be in the center, elevated on a platform. Between her and that beacon would be everything the simulation could throw at her. No powers, no advantages, just her mind and her will. Kira found herself standing in what appeared to be an alien jungle, complete with bioluminescent plants and a humid atmosphere that immediately made her combat suit feel like a sauna. 50 meters ahead, she could see the shimmer of hard light projectors creating the illusion of dense vegetation. Then she heard the growls. 3 predator drones emerged from the undergrowth, designed to look like the savage wildlife from Calyx Prime. Each one was the size of a small vehicle, with jaws that could crush steel and movements too fluid to be entirely mechanical. The observation deck was dead silent. Kira ran. Not away from the drones, but toward them, at an angle that forced them to bunch together as they pursued. She leaped over a fallen log, specifically chosen because she'd studied the arena's terrain database and knew it was a load-bearing support for the holographic canopy above. The predators followed. Kira pivoted hard left, grabbed a hanging vine that she knew was actually a power conduit, and swung herself up and over the pursuing drones. As they passed beneath her, she dropped, landing on the back of the largest predator. What happened next would be replayed in Academy training videos for years to come. Kira wrapped the power conduit around the drone's optical sensors, temporarily blinding it. The drone bucked and thrashed, crashing into its companions. While they were tangled together, Kira jumped clear, ran 3 steps, and used a protruding root system to launch herself at the holographic tree she'd identified as the zone's primary projector node. She didn't have super strength to tear it apart. She had something better. Kira pulled a maintenance access panel from the tree, exposing the circuitry beneath. The arena's AI interpreted this as technological manipulation and immediately escalated the threat level. The Predator drones powered down, replaced by something worse: combat mechs. 6 of them materialized in formation, military-grade hardware with weapons that could punch through reinforced barriers. Their targeting systems locked onto Kira simultaneously. In the observation deck, someone whispered, "She's dead." Kira yanked 3 specific wires from the exposed panel. The mechs fired. Their shots went wide. All of them. Because Kira hadn't just exposed the projector node, she'd disconnected the arena's targeting synchronization system. For approximately 8 seconds, the mech's weapons and sensors were operating independently, creating a narrow window of accuracy failure. 8 seconds was more than enough. Kira was already moving, using the jungle terrain as cover, navigating through the maze of hard light and physical structure using the schematics Lena had provided. She could hear explosions behind her as the mechs attempted to track her movement, their shots destroying holographic trees and real support pillars alike. The jungle zone ended abruptly, giving way to an urban warfare environment. Ruined buildings, destroyed vehicles, the kind of scenario designed for cadets to practice rescue and assault operations. 15 minutes had elapsed. The command beacon was visible now, a glowing pillar of light in the center of what appeared to be a devastated city square. Between Kira and her objective stood the final challenge, and as she studied the layout, she felt her stomach drop. The arena had deployed aerial drones, 20 of them, maybe more, circling the beacon in overlapping patrol patterns. Each one equipped with high-intensity stunners and programmed with advanced tracking algorithms. There was no cover between her position and the beacon. Nothing to hide behind. Nowhere to run. This was the scenario designed to stop her. This was where she was supposed to fail. Kira looked up at the observation deck where hundreds of faces stared down at her, waiting for the inevitable conclusion. She could see Marcus smirking, could see other cadets exchanging knowing looks, could see Instructor Talrek standing perfectly still, his 4 arms crossed, could see Lena Park pressed against the glass, her hand raised in what might have been encouragement. Kira took a breath. Then she started walking directly toward the command beacon. The drones detected her immediately. Warning alarms blared. Targeting reticules painted her from every angle. Observation deck erupted in shouts. "What is she doing? Has she given up? This is suicide." Kira kept walking. The drones opened fire. And Kira did something nobody expected. She started running through the patterns between the stun bolts, not dodging randomly, not hoping for luck, but moving with mathematical precision through the gaps in the drone's overlapping fields of fire. She'd spent 3 days analyzing how the arena's AI coordinated attacks, understanding the timing delays between target acquisition and firing sequences. 0.03 seconds between detection and shot. 0.07 seconds between volleys. Synchronized firing created dead zones in coverage for 0.11 seconds. She'd memorized 42 different movement combinations that exploited those gaps. Now she executed them flawlessly. Duck, roll, sprint, slide, jump, spin. Each movement flowing into the next, her body becoming a study in calculated precision. Stun bolts sizzled around her, missing by centimeters, sometimes millimeters. The drone's AI tried to adapt, but adaptation required processing time, and Kira was already 3 moves ahead. In the observation deck, the shouting had stopped. Everyone was staring in absolute silence. Kira was halfway to the beacon. The arena's AI, recognizing that conventional attacks were failing, did what it was programmed to do. It escalated. The ground beneath Kira's feet began to crack. Environmental hazard protocols activated. Fissures opened in the simulated street, revealing chasms of hard light designed to simulate bottomless drops. The aerial drones intensified their fire rate. The difficulty curve had just become vertical. Kira didn't slow down. She jumped the first fissure, rolled under a concentrated drone barrage, used a piece of simulated rubble as a springboard to leap over the second chasm. Her muscles screamed. Her lungs burned. She'd been running full sprint for nearly 3 minutes, executing combat movements that would exhaust trained soldiers. But she was close now. A final drone formation swooped down, preparing to unleash a coordinated strike that would finally stop her advance. Kira saw them coming, calculated the angles, realized with cold clarity that there was no gap in this pattern, no mathematical solution, no way through. So she created one. Kira grabbed a fist-sized piece of debris, a chunk of actual concrete from one of the arena's physical support structures, and hurled it at the lead drone with every ounce of strength she possessed. The throw was perfect. The debris struck the drone's thruster assembly, not hard enough to destroy it, but precisely hard enough to knock its flight path off by 6 degrees. 6 degrees that sent it careening into the drone beside it. Both machines collided, their hard light weapons discharging prematurely. The energy blasts struck 2 other drones. Chain reaction. 4 drones down. The formation shattered. The gap Kira needed appeared like a miracle made of physics and desperate calculation. She ran through it. Her hand closed around the command beacon. The arena went silent. All drones powered down. All hazards deactivated. The timer froze at 28 minutes, 42 seconds. Objective complete. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody seemed to believe what they'd just witnessed. Then, the observation deck exploded with noise. Half the crowd was cheering. The other half was demanding to know how a powerless human had just completed a scenario that 4th-year cadets failed regularly. Instructors were shouting into communicators, reviewing footage, trying to understand what had happened. Kira stood in the center of the arena, still gripping the beacon, her entire body shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline and something that might have been triumph. The arena doors opened. Instructor Talrek stood framed in the entrance, all 4 eyes fixed on her. "Cadet Voss?" he rumbled. "Please exit the arena and report for debrief immediately. It seems we have much to discuss." Kira walked forward on legs that felt like rubber, past the deactivated drones, through the holographic ruins of the simulated city. As she approached Talrek, she saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Respect. That was? Talrek paused, searching for words. Unprecedented. "Does this mean I pass?" Kira asked. Talrek's mandibles clicked. "It means you have raised some very uncomfortable questions about our training protocols and assessment criteria, questions that will require extensive review." "So, that's a no? That's a report to my office in 1 hour. And Cadet Voss? Bring your gear. You're not going anywhere." Kira nodded and walked through the doorway, back into the normal corridors of Battle Academy 7. As she passed the observation deck entrance, cadets stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to grudging admiration to outright hostility. Marcus Hale stepped into her path. "You got lucky," he said flatly. "One successful run doesn't prove anything." Kira looked at him, this perfect specimen of genetic advantage and inherited power, and felt something shift inside her. "You're right," she said. "It doesn't prove anything, but it does raise an interesting question." "What question?" Kira smiled. "If someone with 0 powers can complete a 4th-year combat scenario, what does that say about everyone who failed it with powers?" She walked past him before he could respond, heading toward the medical bay for mandatory post-evaluation. Behind her, she could hear the whispers starting again, but they sounded different now. Less like mockery, more like uncertainty. In her pocket, Kira's communicator buzzed. A message from Lena Park. Just 3 words. You did it! Kira allowed herself a small smile. She'd proven she could survive the arena. She'd proven she belonged. But as she caught sight of her reflection in a polished wall, the panel, seeing the determination in her own eyes, she realized something important. This was just the beginning. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and crushed expectations. Kira sat on the examination platform while a medical drone scanned her vitals, its sensors humming with mechanical precision. Dr. Wren, a Thalasian with translucent skin that showed her glowing circulatory system, studied the readouts with 3 of her 6 fingers tapping against the datapad. Muscle fatigue, elevated heart rate, minor dehydration, but otherwise remarkably healthy, considering what you just accomplished, Wren said, her voice carrying that peculiar echo Thalasians had. Most cadets come out of the Arena Crucible with broken bones or concussions. You have bruises and exhaustion. Explain how. I didn't get hit, Kira said simply. Nobody avoids getting hit. I did. Wren's luminous eyes fixed on her. You understand, this will complicate things for you, yes? The Academy Board doesn't appreciate having their assessment systems outsmarted by someone who shouldn't theoretically succeed. I didn't outsmart anything. I just paid attention. Paying attention is a skill most powered individuals never develop because they don't need to. Wren finished her examination and stepped back. You're cleared for duty, but I'm recommending reduced training load for 48 hours. Your body needs recovery time. What about the debrief with Instructor Talrek? That still happens. Good luck with that, by the way. Talrek has been reviewing your arena footage for the last 30 minutes. And he looks confused. I've never seen a Vraxian look confused before. It's deeply unsettling. 47 minutes later, Kira stood outside Talrek's office, her hand raised to knock. Enter? His voice rumbled before she could make contact. The office was sparse, decorated only with commendations and tactical maps from various campaigns. Talrek sat behind a desk that seemed too small for his bulk, all 4 hands busy with different datapads. He didn't look up as Kira entered. Sit. She sat. Talrek continued working for another minute, which Kira recognized as a psychological tactic. Establish dominance through forced waiting. She'd read about it in her tactical psychology coursework. Finally, he set down his datapads and fixed all 4 eyes on her. I have reviewed your arena performance 14 times, he said. Each review raises more questions than it answers. You exploited system vulnerabilities, used environmental features in unintended ways, and demonstrated spatial awareness that borders on precognitive, yet every scan confirms you possess 0 paranormal abilities. That's correct, sir. So explain to me how you accomplished what you did. Kira took a breath. Permission to speak freely? Granted. Every cadet in this academy has spent their entire lives relying on powers that manifested naturally. They never had to think about alternatives because alternatives weren't necessary. When Marcus faces a threat, his first instinct is plasma projection. When Yuki needs information, she splits into copies to cover more ground. They have tools built into their DNA. And you don't. I don't. Which means I had to develop different tools. Pattern recognition, strategic analysis, understanding how systems work and where they fail. Powers are amazing, but they make people predictable. The arena's AI expected me to have abilities, so it created countermeasures for abilities I don't possess. That gave me openings nobody else would have. Talrek's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You turned your weakness into an advantage. I turned everyone's assumptions into my advantage. Dangerous thinking, Cadet Voss. Assumptions exist for reasons. The galaxy is full of beings with powers that can level cities. Your cleverness won't stop a psionic assault or survive atmospheric decompression. No, but it might get me to safety before those situations become lethal. And if I'm working with a team, my job isn't to be the strongest. It's to be the one who sees solutions nobody else considers. Talrek leaned back, and Kira heard his chair protest under the weight. The Academy Board has requested a formal evaluation of your performance. They want to determine whether you exploited legitimate tactical advantages or simply cheated using prohibited knowledge. Kira's stomach clenched. Cheated? Someone provided you with arena schematics, restricted information that gave you unfair advantage over other cadets who face the scenario without such preparation. Lena. They knew about Lena's help. The schematics showed me the structure, Kira said carefully. They didn't tell me how to use it. Every tactical decision I made was based on real-time analysis. Other cadets have powers that let them see through walls or predict opponent movements. I used publicly available information about the arena's construction to level the playing field. Publicly available? The arena's basic layout is included in facility safety documentation. Anyone could access it. I just bothered to read what everyone else ignored. Talrek studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, his mandibles clicked in what Kira had learned was Vraxian amusement. You are either the most resourceful cadet I've encountered, or the most troublesome. Possibly both. He picked up one of his data pads. The board will make their determination within 72 hours. Until then, you're suspended from standard training exercises, pending review. Suspended? Consider it protective custody. Half the academy wants to congratulate you. The other half wants to prove your success was a fluke. I'd prefer to avoid the inevitable confrontations until official decisions are made. Kira stood, recognizing dismissal. She was halfway to the door when Talrek spoke again. Cadet Voss? Off the record, what you did in that arena was remarkable. On the record, you've created a substantial problem for this institution's entire assessment framework. I'm genuinely uncertain whether to commend you or expel you. Can I suggest commendation, sir? You may suggest whatever you wish. Reality will determine outcomes. The next 72 hours were bizarre. Kira wasn't confined to quarters, but she wasn't welcomed anywhere either. The Academy's social structure had fractured around her performance, like ice under pressure. Some cadets, particularly those who'd struggled with their own training, treated her like a conquering hero. Others, especially the naturally gifted ones like Marcus, viewed her as a system glitch that needed correcting. Lena found her in the library on the second day, looking simultaneously proud and terrified. They questioned me for 3 hours, Lena said, collapsing into the chair beside Kira. Wanted to know exactly what information I provided, whether we conspired together, if there were other cadets involved. I'm sorry, Kira said. I never meant to drag you into this. Don't apologize. I made my choice. But Kira, you need to understand something. What you did doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone who's ever failed that scenario. Every instructor who designed it. Every administrator who approved it. You proved that the system can be beaten through preparation instead of power. And that makes a lot of important people look foolish. I didn't try to embarrass anyone. Doesn't matter. Results speak louder than intentions. Lena pulled up a news feed on her datapad. Look, it's already spreading beyond the academy. The headline read, Powerless Human Beats Elite Combat Scenario. Questions raised about military training standards. Below it, a subheading. Academy 7 Cadet completes 4th-year challenge with 0 paranormal abilities. Oh no, Kira breathed. Oh yes, you're famous. Or infamous. Depends on who you ask. Lena scrolled through the comments. Some people think you're inspirational. Others think the whole thing was staged. There's already a betting pool on whether the board will validate your success or void it on technicalities. What are the odds? Even money either way. You've divided public opinion straight down the middle. Kira slumped in her chair. She'd wanted to prove herself capable. Instead, she'd become a controversy. There's something else, Lena said quietly. Marcus and 6 other top-tier cadets have formally requested permission to face enhanced arena scenarios themselves. They want to prove that your success doesn't diminish the value of powers. That's insane. The enhanced scenarios are designed for military operatives, not students. They don't care. You made them look weak, Kira. Now they're going to hurt themselves trying to restore their reputations. Before Kira could respond, her communicator chimed. Official summons. The board had reached a decision. The hearing room was cold and formal, designed to intimidate. Kira stood before a semicircular table where 5 board members sat in judgment. She recognized Instructor Talrek at one end. The others were administrators and military advisors she'd only seen in official broadcasts. Director Vance, a human woman with steel-gray hair and a stare that could cut metal, spoke first. Cadet Voss, we've reviewed your arena performance, consulted with technical specialists, and examined all relevant regulations. We've also considered the broader implications of your success for Academy training protocols. Kira's heart hammered, but she kept her expression neutral. Your completion of the Arena Crucible was legitimate, Vance continued. You violated no explicit rules, used no prohibited assistance during the actual scenario, and demonstrated tactical capabilities that meet or exceed Academy standards. Relief flooded through Kira like warm water. However, Vance's tone sharpened. Your methods have exposed significant vulnerabilities in our assessment systems, methods that could potentially be exploited by hostile forces who study our training procedures. The relief evaporated. Therefore, the board has reached the following decision. Your arena success will be officially recognized and entered into your academic record. You will continue your training as a full cadet with no penalties or restrictions. Kira's knees nearly buckled. She'd passed. She was staying. But, Vance raised one finger, you will also be assigned to a special project. You will work with our tactical development team to identify and address the system vulnerabilities you exploited. Your unique perspective will help us create better training scenarios that account for non-powered combatants. Additionally, another board member added, a Kelvan with ridge crests that glowed faint blue. You will serve as tactical advisor for any cadets who struggle with traditional power-based approaches. We believe your experience could benefit others who don't fit conventional profiles. Talrek leaned forward. In essence, Cadet Voss, you've proven that our Academy's single-minded focus on paranormal abilities creates blind spots. We're asking you to help eliminate those blind spots. Consider it punishment for being too clever, or reward for being exceptional, whichever motivates you more effectively. Kira found her voice. I accept. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, Vance said dryly. You've made yourself a symbol whether you intended to or not. That comes with pressure. Half the galaxy will be watching to see if your success was genuine or a lucky accident. The other half will be hoping you fail to validate their belief that powers matter more than strategy. I understand. I hope you do. Dismissed. Kira saluted and turned to leave. As she reached the door, Vance spoke one more time. Cadet Voss? For what it's worth, I entered this academy 40 years ago as a null human like yourself. I washed out after 6 months because nobody believed I could succeed without abilities. What you did in that arena is what I wish I'd been brave enough to attempt. Don't let anyone convince you it wasn't extraordinary. Kira met the director's eyes and saw understanding there. Recognition from someone who'd walked a similar path and knew its costs. Thank you, Director. She left the hearing room and found chaos waiting outside. News of the decision had spread instantly. Cadets crowded the corridor, some cheering, some silent, all staring. Kira pushed through the crowd, searching for familiar faces. She found Marcus blocking her path, his expression unreadable. Congratulations, he said, and it almost sounded sincere. You got what you wanted. I wanted to prove I belong here. That's all. You did more than that. You proved that we've all been coasting on genetic advantages without pushing ourselves. That's a hard truth to swallow. Kira studied him. this cadet who'd mocked her for months. "You could have completed that scenario too, Marcus. Your power level is off the charts. You just relied on brute force instead of thinking about the environment." "Maybe," he stepped aside, letting her pass. "But I requested the enhanced scenario anyway. I need to know if I'm actually good or just genetically lucky. Don't do something stupid trying to compete with me. This wasn't a competition." "Everything is competition. You just changed the rules." Marcus walked away, leaving Kira in the corridor surrounded by whispering cadets. 3 months passed. Kira's life became a careful balance between normal training, her special advisory role, and the constant pressure of being watched. Every exercise, every test, every casual conversation carried extra weight because people were looking for proof that her arena success was either genuine brilliance or spectacular fluke. Marcus completed his enhanced scenario. Barely. He spent 4 days in medical regeneration afterward, but emerged with newfound respect for strategy over raw power. Yuki started attending Kira's tactical analysis sessions. Turned out, creating 7 copies of yourself was useless if none of them knew what to actually do. Dex, the weak telekinetic, discovered that his limited abilities were perfect for precision work when combined with proper planning. He stopped trying to move heavy objects and started moving small objects in critical locations. The Academy's entire approach to training began shifting, incorporating Kira's insights about non-powered combat strategies. Not replacing power-based training, but supplementing it with tactical thinking that made everyone more effective. Then came graduation day for the 4th-year cadets. The ceremony was held in the Academy's main assembly hall, a massive space that could accommodate thousands. Kira sat with the other 2nd-year cadets, watching as the graduating class received their commissions. Director Vance stood at the podium, her voice amplified across the hall. "This year's class has shown exceptional growth," she began, "not just in power development, but in strategic thinking and adaptability. Many of you faced challenges that forced you to evolve beyond your initial capabilities. You learned that strength alone doesn't guarantee success, that abilities without wisdom are merely potential energy waiting to be properly directed." Kira realized Vance was looking directly at her section. "We are sending you into a galaxy at war. You will face enemies with powers you cannot imagine, situations you cannot predict, and choices that will define who you become as soldiers and leaders. Remember that true capability isn't what you're born with. It's what you make of whatever tools you possess." The graduating cadets rose as their names were called. Kira watched them march forward, receiving their commissions, accepting their assignments to various military units throughout the sector. She wondered what her own graduation would look like 2 years from now, whether she'd still be the Academy's controversial success story or just another officer among thousands. After the ceremony, Kira found herself on the Academy's observation deck, staring out at the stars beyond the station's shielding. The galaxy looked peaceful from here, though she knew better. Reports came in daily about skirmishes on the frontier, pirate raids, territorial disputes between different species. Impressive view. Kira turned to find a tall man in military dress uniform, insignia marking him as commander. She didn't recognize him. "Commander," she acknowledged with a respectful nod. "Cadet Voss, I've heard remarkable things about you." He moved to stand beside her, looking out at the stars. "I'm Commander Hayes, Strategic Operations Division. I've been reviewing your Academy records and your work on the Tactical Development Project." "Should I be worried?" Hayes laughed. "On the contrary, I'm here with an opportunity. There's a special operations unit being formed, designed specifically for asymmetric warfare scenarios, situations where conventional power-based approaches fail. We need tacticians who think differently, who see angles others miss. You want me to join a special operations unit? I haven't even graduated yet. We want you to consider it for after graduation." Early recruitment allows us to provide specialized training during your remaining academy time. Shape your education towards specific operational needs. Kira felt excitement and suspicion warring in her chest. Why me? Because you succeeded where you shouldn't have been able to. That suggests you have skills we desperately need. The galaxy's conflicts are becoming more complex, Cadet Voss. Raw power wins battles, but strategy wins wars. We need people who understand that distinction. And if I refuse? Then you complete your standard training and receive a standard assignment? But I think you'll find standard doesn't suit you very well. Hayes handed her a data chip. Everything you need to know is on here. Classified eyes only. Think about it. Discuss it with nobody, and send me your answer within 2 weeks. He left before Kira could respond further. She stood alone on the observation deck, the data chip feeling impossibly heavy in her hand. 2 months ago, she'd been fighting just to survive the academy. Now she was being recruited for operations she couldn't even imagine. Her communicator chimed. Message from Lena. Celebration tonight at the rec hall. Your presence is mandatory. We're toasting to everyone who said you couldn't succeed. Kira smiled and pocketed the data chip. Whatever decisions lay ahead could wait until tomorrow. Tonight, she'd celebrate with the few people who'd believed in her when belief was the riskiest choice available. The rec hall was crowded and loud, filled with cadets from every year unwinding after the graduation ceremony. Kira found Lena at a corner table with Yuki, Dex, and surprisingly, Marcus. The hero arrives, Lena announced, raising her glass. To Kira Voss, who proved that determination beats genetics. To Kira, the others echoed. Kira sat down, accepting the drink Marcus slid toward her. Since when are we celebrating together? Since you made me realize I was being an arrogant fool, Marcus said bluntly. My enhanced scenario attempt nearly killed me because I approached it the same way I approach everything. Maximum power, minimum thought. You taught me that intelligence matters as much as ability. Character development, Yuki's 7 copies said in unison. Who knew Marcus was capable? They laughed, and for the first time in months, Kira felt like she truly belonged. Not because she'd proven herself in combat or exposed system flaws, but because she'd found people who saw her as more than her lack of powers. The evening wore on with stories and jokes, and the kind of easy camaraderie that forms between people who've survived difficult challenges together. Eventually, Lena pulled Kira aside. You okay? You seem distracted. Kira almost mentioned Commander, Hayes and the recruitment offer, but remembered the classified restriction just in time. Just thinking about the future, wondering what comes next. Whatever it is, you'll handle it. You always do. Lena squeezed her shoulder. That's your real power, Kira. Not abilities you were born with, but the refusal to accept defeat. Never lose that. Later that night, back in her quarters, Kira pulled out the data chip Hayes had given her. She inserted it into her personal terminal and began reading. What she found made her breath catch. The Special Operations Unit wasn't just asymmetric warfare. It was first contact scenarios, diplomatic missions to hostile territories, situations where showing excessive power could trigger conflicts that strategic restraint might prevent. They wanted her because she represented something unique, proof that humanity could succeed through intelligence and preparation rather than just paranormal abilities. The galaxy, Hayes's briefing explained, was full of species who viewed power as the only valid currency. Humanity's rapid development of paranormal abilities had gained them respect, but also suspicion. Some species saw humans as potential threats, genetic wildcards who might evolve beyond controllable parameters. A human who succeeded without powers changed that narrative, showed that humanity's strength came from adaptability and thinking, not just fortunate mutations. Kira would become a symbol, whether she wanted to be or not. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling of her small quarters. 3 months ago, she'd walked into the Arena Crucible, expecting either vindication or destruction. She'd gotten both, in ways she never anticipated. Now another arena awaited. Bigger. More dangerous. With stakes that transcended personal pride or academy politics. Kira thought about Director Vance, who'd washed out 40 years ago because nobody believed null humans could succeed. Thought about every cadet who'd mocked her for being powerless. Thought about Lena and the others who'd believed in her when belief was difficult. Thought about the view from the observation deck. All those stars representing worlds and species, and conflicts she couldn't yet imagine. She pulled up a reply form and began typing her answer to Commander Hayes. 3 words. I accept. When do we start? She hit send before doubt could change her mind. Somewhere in the academy, alarms blared as a training exercise began. New cadets, learning to use their powers, discovering their capabilities, following the path that everyone assumed was the only path worth taking. But Kira knew better now. There were as many paths as there were people willing to walk them. Some paths required power. Others required something far more dangerous. The willingness to try when everyone says, you'll fail. The courage to stand when everyone expects you to fall. The intelligence to see what others miss because they're too busy looking at what they already have. Kira shut down her terminal and looked out her small window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, future challenges awaited. Scenarios that couldn't be solved by simply being stronger or faster or more powerful than your opponent. Scenarios that needed someone who'd learned to win by being smarter, more prepared, and more determined than anyone expected. Someone who'd shattered walls not through force, but through the relentless refusal to accept that walls were unbreakable. Kira smiled. Let them come. She was ready.